light couldn't chase away the remnants of the nightmare. Probably because the nightmare had been her reality, and the dream was nothing more than memories of it. She hurried through the hallway, ignoring the dark corners that the light didn't reach, the open doorway that led into the bathroom. The living room was small and quaint, just like the rest of the apartment. It smelled like chocolate and looked like a page out of a 1970s Sears catalog. Plaid sofa and easy chair, small television with antenna ears. Just like Chocolate Haven, it never changed. The sofa had been there for as long as Willow could remember. The stove and cabinets and counters in the little galley kitchen were all the same. She could remember spending time there as a kid, eating cookies and drinking hot chocolate and listening to her grandmother talk about how fortunate they all were to have one another. If she could have, Alice Lamont would have lived forever, just to make sure that none of her granddaughters ever forgot what it meant to be family. But of course, no one lived forever, including Byron. The patriarch of the Lamont family was getting older, and he was slowing down. Willow had noticed that when she'd come for her sister Brenna's wedding. She hadn't said anything to either of her sisters, but she was certain they'd noticed as well. They hadn't put any pressure on Willow, but they'd hinted that she should spend more time at home. They hadn't seemed to realize that Willow's home wasn't Benevolence, the chocolate shop, the big house on the hill that they'd grown up in. Maybe because, to both of them, home was all those things. Not a surprise when it came to Adeline. She'd always loved Benevolence. Brenna, though, she was an enigma. One that Willow wasn't going to solve at 2 a.m. when her stomach hurt and her head was pounding. Migraines sucked, and she'd been fighting one for days. She stalked into the kitchen, grabbed the old kettle, and turned on the faucet. Her hand shook and water sloshed over the rim, but she managed to get enough water in to make a cup of tea. She'd count that as a victory. She needed to win at something. She'd been losing at chocolate making for days. She scowled, annoyed with herself and with the situation she was in. She could have said no. She should have said no. The phone rang, and she nearly jumped out of her skin, the kettle clattering onto the stove, more water sloshing through the spout. She grabbed a paper towel with one hand and the phone with the other, the old yellow cord twisting and twirling as she pressed the receiver to her ear. "Hello?" she barked, her voice too loud. "I knew you'd be awake," the caller whispered, and for a moment Willow was back in time, another voice whispering in her ear, "Say a word to anyone, and your sisters die." Her hand tightened on the cord, her nails digging into her palm. "Who is this?" "How many people do you know who'd call you at 2 a.m?" the caller whispered. This time, Willow recognized the voice, the hint of sarcasm, and the soft coo of a baby in the background. "Addie? What in God's name are you doing up?" she said, imagining her sister tucked in some corner of the pretty little house she shared with her husband, newborn daughter, and the 2 teenagers she'd taken in. What most mothers of newborn babies do at 2 a.m, feeding my daughter. There is no end to her appetite. She didn't sound frustrated by that. She sounded content. "I'm also wishing I had cake. Coconut, with those yummy toasted coconut shavings on top, just like Grandmom used to make." "Want me to bake you one?" Willow opened the fridge, eyeing the empty shelves. No eggs, no milk, no butter. She doubted she had flour or sugar in the pantry cupboard, and she knew for sure she didn't have coconut. But if Addie wanted cake, she could run to the next town over, go to the all-night grocery store, and grab the ingredients. It would give her something to do. "Don't you dare." "Why not?" "First, that would take hours. Second, I'm trying to lose the baby weight. That's not going to happen if I stuff my face every time my daughter eats." "You don't need to lose weight." "That's not what Mom says." "Since when do you care what Mom says?" "Since